A deaf woman wept alone on Christmas Eve, until a single dad signed, "Come with us tonight." Snow stitched the sidewalks into silence, the kind that felt louder to Mara than any city clamor. Christmas Eve had a way of amplifying absence. Store windows glowed, families hurried past with paper bags and laughter she could see but not hear. Mara pulled her scarf tighter and leaned against the bus shelter glass, breath fogging the pain. The last bus had gone. She hadn't realized how late it was. Inside her coat pocket, her phone buzzed, another group chat she'd muted long ago lighting up with photos of cousins and cousins' children. She smiled out of habit, then let the phone go dark. The smile fell. Her hands trembled as she signed to herself, a habit she'd formed when her thoughts felt too heavy to keep contained. "You're okay. You're safe." But tears came anyway. They slid hot down her cheeks, blurring the wreaths strung on lampposts and the painted angels in the bakery window across the street. She missed her mother most on nights like this, the way Mom's hands had moved when she signed lullabies, how the world had felt warm and legible then. Since her mother passed, holidays had become a series of rooms she tiptoed through alone. Mara didn't notice the man at first. He was crouched in front of a little girl bundled like a marshmallow, trying to coax a mitten back onto her hand. The girl giggled, Mara knew by the way her shoulders shook, and tugged free again. The man laughed, too, a sound Mara couldn't hear but recognized by the creases at his eyes. He glanced up and caught Mara's gaze, then noticed her tears. He hesitated. People often did. They asked with mouths that moved too fast, or spoke louder, as if volume could bridge the gap. Sometimes they turned away, embarrassed by their own uncertainty. This man didn't speak. He raised his hands and signed, a little stiff but unmistakable, "Are you okay?" The question startled a sob out of Mara, half laugh, half cry. She nodded, then shook her head, then wiped her face. "I will be," she signed back. "I'm just." She gestured at the night, the lights, the emptiness. Holidays. His relief was visible, like a breath released. "I'm Evan," he signed. "This is Lucy." The girl waved enthusiastically, her mitten slipping again. Evan rolled his eyes in mock despair and Lucy grinned wider. Mara signed her name. For a moment, the three of them stood in a pocket of quiet that felt less lonely than the silence she'd carried before. Snow fell, catching in Lucy's lashes. "We were waiting for a ride," Evan signed, then frowned at his phone. "But it's late. And cold." He looked back up, then did something Mara hadn't expected. He tilted his head, thoughtful, and signed slowly, carefully, "We're going to dinner. Just us. Would you?" He paused, searching for the right shape. "Come with us tonight." Mara's heart stuttered. She glanced down at her worn boots, the bus schedule taped inside the shelter. Reflexes of years pressed in. Don't impose, don't misunderstand, don't hope too much. But Lucy tugged on Evan's sleeve and signed, clumsy but earnest, "Please." She had learned that word well. "I don't want to be a burden," Mara signed. Evan shook his head, emphatic. "You wouldn't be." Then, gentler, "It's Christmas Eve." The car ride was filled with small things that mattered. Lucy pointing out houses with inflatable reindeer, Evan signing jokes about Santa needing snow tires, Mara laughing until her cheeks hurt. The restaurant was modest, all wood and candlelight. The host smiled and pointed to a table by the window. Evan asked for menus with pictures, Lucy's request, and the waiter nodded, unbothered by the silent conversation. Over soup and bread, Mara learned that Evan had lost his wife 3 winters ago. That he'd taken a night class to learn sign language after Lucy's preschool teacher noticed Lucy signing with a deaf classmate and wanted to encourage it. That he practiced every night, hands aching, because he wanted his daughter to grow up fluent in kindness. Mara shared pieces of herself, too, the job at the library where she cataloged stories by touch and memory, the apartment that echoed too much, the way grief had taught her to be careful with joy. They signed slowly, patiently, sometimes laughing at mistakes. No one rushed them. After dinner, Evan paid despite Mara's protest, signing, "You can get dessert." Lucy cheered at the word dessert like it was a holiday of its own. They walked next door for hot chocolate crowned with whipped cream. Outside, the snow thickened, muffling the world further. Mara realized she didn't mind the quiet anymore. When they returned to the car, Evan hesitated again. "We're going to put up our last ornament," he signed. "Lucy made it." Lucy bounced. "Would you like to see?" Mara followed them to a small house with a crooked porch light. Inside, the tree glowed unevenly, handmade ornaments crowding its branches. Lucy climbed onto a stool and placed a paper star near the top. Evan lifted her, steadying the stool with one foot. Lucy signed to Mara, "It's for people who are lonely." She pressed the star into place, then beamed. Mara's throat tightened. She signed back, "It's perfect." Later, as coats were gathered and goodbyes hovered, Evan signed something that felt like a promise without pressure, "You're welcome anytime." Lucy hugged Mara's waist with surprising strength. On the walk home, Evan insisted on driving her. Mara watched the snow soften the sharp edges of the city. She thought of how the night had shifted because someone had chosen not to look away, because hands had spoken when voices might have failed. At her door, Mara turned back and signed, "Thank you." It felt insufficient and enormous all at once. Evan smiled. "Merry Christmas," he signed. Inside, Mara set her coat down and stood for a moment in the quiet. It was still there, the silence, but it no longer felt empty. She made herself tea and, before bed, texted a photo of a paper star to the muted group chat. "I wasn't alone tonight," she wrote. Snow continued to fall, and somewhere across town, a single dad and a little girl were learning that the truest invitations don't need sound, only open hands and the courage to ask, "Come with us tonight."